I'm Elizabeth at Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I have a PhD in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists, and as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have the Reading Shifts tag for you. This tag was created by Hannah from Hannah's Books. I wasn't tagged, but it seemed like a really fun one to do. So there are 8 questions. Let's jump in. Question 1, how has your reading developed over your lifetime? Do the kind of books that bring you the most pleasure now differ from the books you loved most earlier in your life? If you've seen big changes in your reading since you've matured, what might explain your changing interests? So I would say that my main genres that I enjoy reading have been cemented since pretty early on, from elementary school to high school, those got defined. I've been reading fantasy since I was a small child. I've been reading horror since I was a middle schooler. Classics I've been reading since I was a small child, but I really became focused on Victorian classics right at the beginning of high school. So for the most part, those are the same. I would say that the 2 genres that I've kind of grown out of, though, over time, have been manga and contemporary YA. I used to read a lot of manga in high school, and I had stacks. And since they each cost $9.99 at Borders, I was actually able to calculate how much money I spent in manga, and it was kind of gross. Oof, that was a lot of money. Oh my God, that was so much money. At least with the rest of these books, I wouldn't be able to calculate it because I don't know the exact prices of any of them. No, with the manga, it was $9.99 each, and there's a series of 20-something books, and you've got 5 series of 20-something books that you're working on. So yeah, I really started to move out of that after high school. I've read a little bit in college, but the only manga series I still have is my favorite, Fruits Basket by Tatsuki Takuya. This has been a favorite since middle school. So again, even then, even though I've grown out of the genre, my favorite that I still love was still cemented very early on. But yeah, I don't read manga anymore, and I haven't even picked up Fruits Basket in a very long time. And I'm do I want to reread Fruits Basket? Kind of. I do not have time for that right now. But yeah, so that is an interest that just kind of waned over time. The other one is contemporary young adult literature, which I've just grown out of. I was reading quite a lot of that even into my mid-20s, I would say. But now a lot of times I pick it up and I'm no. You're 17, shut up. Shut up, your child. I don't know. I've grown out of it. I am not the target audience. I recognize that. So the John Green books that I really loved in undergrad, I've tried rereading them as now an adult, and I'm nah. But that's kind of how it's supposed to be. These are books written for high schoolers and college students, and I am no longer those things. That said, my favorite series is still a contemporary YA series. It's on the older side, though. The characters are in college, and in a lot of ways it doesn't even read like YA, just because of some of the stuff that's going on. So I do still read it a bit, but mostly not. That's changed. I still keep a few on my shelves that I really loved. Is there one that I can just easily... Oh, Laurie Halse Anderson will always be a favorite of mine, so I keep her 2 books that I really love, Winter Girls and Speak, on my shelves. and probably will reread them at some point, but it's mostly because I'm like, these were important to me at a different time. But I read Speak more recently and it was still extremely good, so I don't know. I still keep a few around. Question number 2, do you find yourself choosing different kinds of books at different periods of the year? For example, do the seasons affect what you read for pleasure? Similarly, you might read very different kinds of books while on vacation. So I would say that the booktube season is what mainly affects my reading in terms of that, because we have all these events. We read Victorian literature in October. I read Victorian literature year-round because that's what I study, but you know, I read a lot of it in October. We read Jane Austen in July. We read Shakespeare in September. So stuff like that. I do, though, have a few books that are very seasonal in my head. Or even not just like specific books, it's like whole authors or genres. And the first one would be Stephen King. Stephen King equals summer to me, okay? Every summer I will read at least one Stephen King book. Like, most people would be like, well, October, because Halloween, because horror. Stephen King is for summer. So like Cujo takes place in the summer, first of all, and I knew I had to read it at the height of summer, so I read it in July. Last year? 2 years ago? Time doesn't exist. And then this year, I read 2 Stephen King books in the summer. I read first The Shining in June, which you might be thinking like winter book because they're snowed in. No, summer book because Stephen King. Given it would also be good to read in the winter, but summer, Stephen King. And then I read The Outsider in August. So yeah, ever since I was in middle school, summer just equals Stephen King for me. I don't know entirely why. Like, I guess, like some of them are set in the summer. It might be because my first introduction to Stephen King was The Body, better known as Stand By Me from the film adaptation, and that is set right at the end of summer. So maybe that's where it comes from, but yes, Stephen King equals summer. And then in the fall, I almost always have the urge to pick up a dark academia book. And last year I picked up The Secret History because I think it was like the end of October or the beginning of November. And it was just like, I was walking on campus and the sky was gray and it was gloomy and the bare trees and the leaves. And I was like, The Secret History. It's time to read that. So yeah, and I usually do use a dark academia book to kind of transfer into my fall reading, which I've talked about several times in the end of the year book tag. So yeah, dark academia equals fall, Stephen King equals summer. Question number 3, do specific experiences in your life ever shape what you choose to read? For example, did you read obsessively about child rearing when your kids were little, about gardening as spring is about to begin, about the experience of grief when someone you loved died, etc. So I would say I don't do this too much, but throughout the time that I was in my graduate program, I did read a few books about like being in a graduate program. So my first year I picked up Graduate School for the 21st Century by Gregory Colon Semenza. So this is like, it like brings you through your whole time in graduate school. So I read that right at my first year. I similarly read Writing Your Dissertation in 15 Minutes a Day by Joan Bolker when I started writing my dissertation. And then when I was getting ready to go on the job market, I read The Professor Is In, The Essential Guide to Turning Your PhD into a Job by Karen Kelsky. This is the only one that I still have because this is the only one that is now still relevant to me because, you know, I'm done writing my dissertation. I have finished the graduate program, but I am still trying to turn this PhD into a career. And this book is actually super helpful. Sometimes her tone leaves a bit to be desired, but the information itself is super helpful. So yeah, I think that's really the only time, though, is throughout graduate school I've read these books. I can't think of another time when I've really read about a specific subject because of what was going on in my life. Question number 4, have there been any times in your life when circumstances have limited or changed your reading in some way? Perhaps caretaking responsibilities or a big move that made it hard to find as much time to read as you'd like, or personal illness that made it harder to concentrate, or maybe just long-term travel that might have limited your book choices. How do you deal with those circumstances? So, generally speaking, I read all the time. However, there are times when I read less than other times, and that often happened like around final paper season, at the end of the semesters when, I'm rushing to write these papers. And it also did happen when I moved here into my new apartment with my husband. And it actually leads very well into the next question, because these times like this often lead me into a reading slump. So question number 5 is, BookTube is full of discussions of reading slumps, when dedicated readers seem to lose interest for a while in books. Sometimes they just can't find a book that appeals to them. Have you ever experienced a slump? If so, how did you handle it? So yeah, that summer of 2021, like literally from May to September, was just a complete slump. It started because of the final paper rush. And I know this because I post all of my monthly wrap-ups on my Tumblr, so I can actually go back and look and see what I had to say about them. And so May was a really rough month. I didn't have a lot of reading time thanks to my final papers. I read 4 books. Then we move into June, where I read 3 books. Because I was moving. I just started working at the dog kennel again, and I was really busy. And then we go to July, where I read 2 books. And another thing that was causing this slump is that I was reading Middlemarch that summer for the first time. Middlemarch, where are you? I was reading this bad boy for the first time, and I did not have fun with this the first time. So I think that was causing this slumpiness as well, is reading a book that I just wasn't enjoying, but feeling like I should be reading it, so then not reading my other books. And then that August, I read 3 books, and then finally in September, I got up to 5 books because the semester started and I had to read for classes. Like, it was a rough go, summer of 2021. What do I do to get out of slumps? Usually I go to a favorite that I know I'm gonna love. And in the summer of 2021, I did just that. I went to my ever-reliable favorite series, All for the Game by Norris Sakovic, which at this time was only 3 books. The Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The King's Men. However, usually this works. Like going to a favorite and I'm like, yes, I am refreshed. No, it did not work in the summer of 2021. So in June, the 3 books I read were The Raven King, The King's Men, and then Luster by Raven Lilani. And I wrote this in my wrap-up post. Remember how in my last wrap-up I said I'd hopefully read more in June? Yeah, it didn't happen. As I said, I've had no time to relax. It took me ages to reread The Raven King and The King's Men, even though they're some of my favorite books. Luckily, I'm able to listen to audiobooks on my commute, so I was able to sneak Luster in there. So yeah, no, it wasn't even helping then. Summer of 2021. Oof. Although, you know what? I remember being fairly happy that summer. Like, I was doing a job I loved. I'd just moved in with my, at the time, fiance, and things were good. Like, I got engaged, we got the cats. But yeah, slumpy reading, and even my go-to couldn't help. Sometimes you just need to take a break, I guess, is what I learned there. Question number 6, booktubers also talk about book hangovers, when readers are so moved by a book that they find it difficult to move on to a new book. Have you ever felt this way? So I talked about this semi-recently. I don't remember why or in what video, but when I was younger, if I found a book that I loved, I would just immediately start reading it again. And then again, and then again. Like, I would read a book 6 times in a row without reading anything else. So that happened with one of my childhood favorites, The More Child by Eloise McGraw, which, I mean, look at this thing. This is beat up. But, and I had originally read the library copy because I didn't have my own copy. One of my friends eventually got me this for my birthday because she was like, I know you really love it and now you don't have to get it from the library. So yeah, I was like just on a constant loop of reading it. I kept doing that even into the beginning of high school. In middle school, when I first read The Body by Stephen King in the collection Different Seasons, I did the same thing, loop read it. In my first year of high school, I did it with Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Again, loop read it. I don't think I like read it quite as much as I did The More Child or even The Body, but I definitely read it at least 3 times in my freshman year of high school. So yeah, that's what I used to do when I had a book hangover. I would just keep reading it. I don't do that now. I've grown out of that. Although I do still occasionally get a book hangover, and the one that I remember the most is from A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book devastated me. For like a week after finishing this, I was just like, wow. I couldn't like pick up anything else. I just like thought about this. I don't remember what eventually snapped me out of it, but eventually I did. But yeah, no, it was so devastating, but so good that I just needed to like have a week to think. Was not gonna be rereading it though. I'm like, I don't need that kind of heartbreak that many times over. Jeez. Question number 7, tell us about a few books that almost always work for you. Something that might have remained a favorite throughout your life despite any changing reading tastes. Something that always seemed to hit just the right spot when you need a lift, or perhaps some lifetime book hangover where the text will always be at the back of your mind. So, of course, Wuthering Heights, my favorite book ever since I was 14. Like, I can pick this up at any time and be like, ah, yes, excellent. Like, this book lives in my head. It is me. Kathy is Heathcliff, but I am Wuthering Heights. Like, I don't know, it's part of me. So it does always hit, like every time I can, it's great. Similarly, The Secret History by Donna Tartt always hits. I've not read this nearly as many times as Wuthering Heights, but like anytime I've picked this up, I'm just like, yup, this is what I needed. Excellent, excellent. And then finally, my favorite series, All for the Game. Except for the summer of 2021, it didn't quite hit that spot, I guess. But other than that, I can pretty much always pick up one of these. Like, I don't even have to read them in order anymore, okay? These live in my head rent-free. Like, I need you to understand that quotes from this series just go through my head constantly. And like, if I had people who had also read these books, I would communicate in quotes from these books with them. Like, me and some of my friends like have movies and stuff that we are all very familiar with and will quote them on certain occasions. Yeah, I would do this with these books if I had anyone to do it with. Unfortunately, nobody else has read them, and nobody would get it if I tried. So yeah, the original trilogy is the ones I already talked about, and then we also have the two newest editions. It's kind of like the second trilogy. We've got the Sunshine Court and the Golden Raven. And I've only read each of these once. The other three, it's like a million times. But these two, once each, and they still live in my head rent-free. Like, quotes still come through. I haven't even read them that many times, and they're just there. So yeah, these live here in my mind. And they pretty much always do hit. Like, they always do the trick, except for that one summer. And I do this every time when I talk about these. I know they're not good. I don't care, okay? I don't care. I have fun with them. I don't care that they're not good. They're bad. They're like actively bad, probably. But no, I love them. So I will hear no criticism. Question number 8 is to tag people. So I'm going to tag 3 people who I have followed more recently. Daryl from Fellowship of the Folios, Heather from Fresh Parchment, and Violette from Violette's Book Days. No pressure. If you don't want to do it, that is fine. But if you do, you're tagged. And if I didn't tag you, but you want to do this, please feel free to consider yourself tagged by me. I would also love to hear some of your answers to these questions down in the comments. And have you read any of the books I talked about? What did you think of them? Thank you so much to Hannah for creating this tag. It was a lot of fun and like a very thoughtful one that I had to think about for a while. So thank you, Hannah. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.